Hi, hello, and welcome. I'm Sophie, and this is Astrology Chisme. Happy Twin Peaks Day. Today, I'm going to be analyzing the birth chart for when Cooper was entering Twin Peaks. As a lot of Twin Peaks fans know, there is a lot of occult, but also astrology specific content sprinkled throughout the show. I'm actually thinking of making this a series, so comment down below if that's what you want me to do. I was thinking about making a video about the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, the moon box, Laura Palmer's death chart, as well as just a chart for the show in general. I was like, this is all too much to just put in one video, so I'm honestly gonna make it a whole series. Let me know which one excites you the most. I was also thinking of making one about moon phases. So yeah, today I'm gonna keep it light, gonna keep it short. We're gonna focus on Coop, and I wanna focus on, the short and sweet, like pie. And it's like, what is the point of even celebrating today, February 24th, if not for the famous quote?
Diane, 11:30 a.m., February 24th, entering the town of Twin Peaks.
So yeah, as an astrologer, that really piqued my interest, as did a lot of like the cryptic dates sprinkled throughout Twin Peaks in general, which I also want to make charts for. So I used North Bend, Washington as the location for this chart because, first of all, like that is just kind of like widely known as like the place that Twin Peaks was shot in. Not all, but it's also the place that claims Twin Peaks the hardest. Like this is like, I think the only place where it's like legally a holiday. So like Twin Peaks Day is legally a holiday in North Bend, Washington. So I think the connection speaks for itself. I'm gonna pull up the chart right here, and we're gonna look at what we can deduct from this. And I know that this is a fictional event, but if you're boring, just say that. Also, just wanted to say, my look today is inspired by the queen herself. Like for me, she was like the baddest. Lucy. I have a sweater that I think was like very something Lucy would wear, and it's knit and super soft and cottagecore. And then yeah, my hair was inspired. I also trimmed my bangs for this video, so if that's not commitment, I don't know what is. I just love that show. Like it's literally my ringtone. And currently I'm living in the Pacific Northwest in Portland, so this show, when I first started watching it, I had just moved. I don't know, I feel like it helped me process that because it was the first time. Actually, no, that's not true. But it helped me process moving, and it helped me like assimilate and kind of like really appreciate the culture of this region. Like I feel like my life is a movie, and I need that to be kind of reflected by the media that I consume. My purpose with this isn't to take away from the mystery, but just to kind of like add to it. I believe that whoever put that exact date, while it didn't really happen, with astrology, everything happens for a reason. Without further ado, let's jump into it. I'm going to put the birth chart for the moment Coop enters up here. 11:30 a.m., February 24th, 1989, at North Bend, Washington. And so the first thing that stood out to me was that there is a Gemini Ascendant at the 23rd degree. I looked up what this degree means in Sabian symbols and Chandra symbols. Yeah, just to kind of get a poetic description of the degree, which I think that y'all and Lynch would appreciate. This show is so filled with such rich visual imagery, and also like descriptive language, especially in parts like Coop's dreams and stuff like that. Both of these degree theories are just like channeled images from some astrologer. So for Sabian theory, the image is 3 fledglings in a nest, pre-flight. And so the description for this, I'm going to read it. All know that a vast new world opens that with first flight. And all know that the when is soon. Yet there is a calm, detached readiness for the moment to arrive. Something is emerging in its own time. However, this time you are more aware of the impending swell of significance. Say what needs to be said, but know the real action is yet to come. There was a bit more in like the description that I cut out that had to do with all the birds kind of knowing that their nest was something that needed to be grown out of, and like kind of like the three of them having different reactions to that. Yeah, this made me think a lot about just that feeling of embarking on a new adventure. He needed to come out of his nest. I've heard Kyle MacLachlan talk about this in his interviews where Coop, his character, entered Twin Peaks with a really like boyish enthusiasm that kind of, you know, becomes more somber as he becomes more and more aware of like all that's going on in Twin Peaks. So I think that really speaks to the maturity of this character. Now let's go on to the Chandra symbols. And I really like this one. I actually wasn't going to pull it up, but once I read it, I was like, oh, we have to include this. So the symbol is a tunnel created by trees. Intervention by your own greater self within the patterns of the personal story. A vision is granted, a way is shown, yet to follow it will mean many shatterings. A cosmic future that takes you by surprise. So much is opening. All you need is to be there and ask. The expanded I aimed directly at you and drew you through. It's like a tunnel created by trees. He's literally on a road. If not created by trees, like it was definitely created by man, but it was sprinkled with trees, and the authority and like the growth, the wisdom, the age of trees here in the Pacific Northwest, like it just feels like you're on their land, you know? And I'm native, like it's not my land, like it's their land. I just had to include that because trees in the Pacific Northwest are just so iconic. And I think that as far as the description, yeah, like 100%. Now let's look at the actual like planetary placements. That's all I'm gonna really talk about for degree theory. So yeah, Mercury is the chart ruler, so naturally I look to that next, and it is at 10 degrees Aquarius, and what is known as the first decan of Aquarius, which just means that it is in the first 10 degrees of Aquarius. Decans are basically just like the 30 degrees of a zodiac sign divided by 3. And so the first 10 is the first decan, the second is the second, and then up to like, you know, 30 is the third decan. So yeah, it's in the first decan of Aquarius. Its tarot card corresponds to the 5 of Swords. The first decan of Aquarius is ruled by Venus and Saturn. The 5 of Swords is a lot about like betrayal and kind of conflict that comes with the number 5 in tarot and numerology and stuff like that. I think that the fact that it is ruled by Venus speaks to bringing people together for a common cause, especially in the sign of Aquarius. People with placements in the first decan of Aquarius are usually somehow involved in organizing and like working with people, especially in like a social justice context. So Coop is definitely going to be doing this in the show, the Mercury aspect. I feel like he's literally speaking to his coworker who is supporting him and on this journey with him, living like kind of vicariously through him. Diane, it's a Gemini rising chart ruled by Mercury, and this moment is about him talking to his coworker. This decan of Aquarius, it speaks to kind of being an outsider because it is like a 5 of Swords and because there is that Saturn influence on it, of like being an outsider of kind of like an already established social group. And while I do believe that Coop is an anti-gentrification king, like I would love to talk about this in another video. He definitely knows his place as an outsider, and I think that's what brings him and leads him to so much success, is that kind of detached awareness of Aquarius in kind of knowing and recognizing that. In respects to residents of Twin Peaks. And I also think that the Five of Swords is finally, the Five of Swords does speak to the conflict that brought him here in the first place, and which will continue to ensue as he unravels the thread of the mystery. And I also think that this Venus conjoined Midheaven situation echoes this theme of cooperation that I had mentioned before, which I just realized actually has the word Cooper in it. And yeah, like that being the purpose of this. You know, the Midheaven, what is the goal? I think Venus also speaks to the love and friendship that is so inherent to Twin Peaks. It also made me think of Laura Palmer. Her archetype is kind of like a Venus woman that was killed, and like, let's all defend her, because Venus is, if Mars is the warrior and the defender, then Venus is who he's protecting. Laura Palmer as like the love interest and just like the woman in the situation that's on everyone's minds. Because the MC is in the 9th house, it does speak to the trials and tribulations of working within a federal and like judicial legal context. The next thing I noticed is the Sun is conjunct North Node in Pisces. To me, that is so powerful. It's like very much a right place at the right time type of thing. The Sun, which represents the light and the light of investigation, as well as just the light of consciousness, like being aware of things, being aware of your own destiny, which is represented by the North Node, and like conscious of your mission, which Coop is. And I think that the Sun and the North Node points to just like it being inevitable for you to realize your potential. It being in the 10th house too, like it speaks to legacy, and I think that that would also explain like why this moment is so iconic. As Twin Peaks fans like know that that's the time and the date that this happened, because once he entered there was really no going back. It was kind of like crossing a threshold to his own destiny and the destiny of everyone in Twin Peaks. Like it wasn't just him, he's making his mark, right? That mark is going to be remembered by the fictitious characters of Twin Peaks and the fans. Just being in the sign of Pisces, I just had to think, yeah, like this has a lot to do with Piscean and Jupiterian things such as belief, but more importantly, it made me think about the artistic side of this. Pisces is kind of related to film and TV and illusions. Some argue that Twin Peaks is like meta and like self-aware soap opera, and so I was just wondering if that had anything to do with the success it had on TV, as well as just kind of the that like self-aware film aspect. Like, another thing I wanted to point out is that Pluto's in the 6th house, and so the 6th house is right below the 7th or the descendant. It doesn't make like an aspect or like an angle to the horizon. This is why people refer to it as a dark house. It's like that point right before the horizon, like the place where the sun meets the earth. So I think the 6th house in this way kind of speaks to what's yet to come. Pluto being in the 6th house in Scorpio, I just like made me think about the evil and like kind of bog this power trips that people were on who had no idea yet. It's kind of like, it's almost as if the birth chart is saying like, we'll deal with this later, like right now. It's not really like the time or place for that. Like it's yet to submerge. I also think that the Pluto being in opposition to the Mars of the chart speaks to the death of Laura Palmer, and it also speaks to love, because Pluto opposite Mars, you know, does denote violence, and in the 12th house, especially correlates to death. So that was one of the aspects that pointed to like the dark, ominous side of Twin Peaks. Another aspect that made me see that was the 8th house stellium in Capricorn of Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus. There's a lot of energy going on there, and the fact that None of them are really personal planets. Saturn is the outermost planet we can see with the naked eye, and then Uranus and Neptune being generational. It made me think about the entanglements and like that historical kind of emotional damage, just small town emotional damage that comes with like hiding and like secrets. The 8th house is also a very dark house, not making any aspects to the horizon. Sorry, I don't know what happened, but so the 8th house also represents grief that is too big to hold on your own, and that weight needs to be shared by others and not just like burdened on yourself. And so that made me think about how much Laura Palmer's death affected everyone there. Actually, like having that dignified Saturn in its own sign, the tension between going on with like business as usual. With the Neptune specifically conjoining the Saturn, it speaks to like the disillusionment that comes with accepting this type of status quo, sneaking around, keeping the pain to yourself, repressing your emotions, keeping things behind closed doors, and so on and so forth. So another evil thing that I see, and it's probably like the biggest thing in this chart, I know I've been like on this roll, is the Mars and Jupiter in the 12th house. For one, it talks about how there are greater forces, obviously like Jupiter expanding everything it touches, just great forces that are on the unseen, right, in the 12th house, another one of the dark houses. Both willing to help, I think. Actually, like these great forces aren't necessarily good or bad, because Jupiter in this chart is the benefic. The sun is in the 10th. This is a day chart. This is happening in the daytime. Jupiter is the benefic of this chart, and so that would speak to the overwhelming support, I think, by like the spirits in this case to like help resolve this case. And the Mars in this case, because Mars is a night star, is the malefic, and it kind of brings more chaos. So I think because they're conjoined and they're one entity, like this speaks to the duality that Twin Peaks is so good at capturing, like in the symbolism, but also in demonstrating to us that none of these characters are inherently like purely good or evil. They're all capable of doing both, especially the victim, Laura Palmer. She was forcing her mans to trap and like saw the murder and like was doing all this like shady things, but she was also doing Meals on Wheels, helping tutor Josie with English. So yeah, I think the only character that is purely evil is Bob, but as David Lynch said, he's not really like a character, he's more of an abstraction. And yeah, I think he is definitely, like I said, represented by like the Pluto Mars. Back to Jupiter and Mars again, I think this also speaks to acting with conviction. If you think about Mars and Jupiter rule signs like Pisces or Sagittarius, believing that you can is super like key. It's just like, if you don't believe you can, then you won't. You simply won't. Moving forward in a Mars way with faith of Jupiter, like that's the key. You could also speak to Dale Cooper's like connection to international religions. Like I know he was very interested in Tibet and Tibetan practices, and that really helped him like move forward and make decisions around the case, like literally targeting the suspects based on practices and teachings, and are just have some sort of philosophy behind them more than anything. The Mars-Jupiter thing also echoes this thing about success being inevitable. Just because Jupiter is the planet that would correlate to success in this chart, and Mars would be about how you go about achieving it, right? And finally, just because it is in the 12th house, it's just so fascinating to me, because the 12th house would also have to do with the mystery of the show, really. The many spirits, whether they're good or bad. Also, it's about learning from the mystery through actions, and in Taurus it's like really embodying your instincts and going with what you feel literally in your gut is best to move forward. I mean, Mars is debilitated, it's not in its favorite sign to be, it's opposite Scorpio with sign of rulership. In Taurus, it moves a bit slower than it would like to, can be kind of clumsy in this way, especially the fact that, you know, it's out of sect, so it's not in its prime time, which is nice. It kind of acts a little bit in a more like frustrating way with the delays and just the mishaps of Cooper. You know, his misstep, his literal misstep in the Red Room. That like slow advancing, like slowly advancing, and the need for patience, which can be hard, especially in a Gemini rising chart. I also think it has to do with Coop's dreams, because the 12th house space is about dreams, his subconscious. So it shows that, yeah, like he does act on his subconscious. Because it's in Taurus, it shows up as physical like symbols. And I think about examples such as this, and how literally embracing the mundane is how he unravels the thread, because the 12th house is the house of unraveling. I think the only problem with this could be maybe potentially getting too cocky, but I don't know if he actually did that. Let me know in the comments if you think he did. But that's all I have to say about that. The last thing I want to close out on is the Libra moon, which is trining the Ascendant, and I think it's so sweet. I think it's so sweet for many reasons, and I think, you know, the intention of Twin Peaks really is to show us about true love and beauty, which I think it really did. It really helped me like fall in love with the whole landscape of this place, because I moved here in the winter, so I wasn't really able to hike and stuff. I think the Libra moon in the 5th, there's a desire and a need for balance, of course. I think it also speaks to the hospitality that Dale is kind of received with. It comes from him being such a diplomat. And finally, justice. In the 5th house of pleasures, you know, Coop is super thrilled to enjoy the simple pleasures of coffee and pie and the beautiful women of Twin Peaks. I mean, the Libra moon as the show, it could also show just the beautiful cinematography that is involved and really helped me kind of fall in love with it. More than anything, I just want to highlight that Libra moon is all about finding justice, and finding justice in a Venus ruled sign for a girl. That's all I have for the chart. Thank you for watching. Please let me know in the comments what you want me to make. Like, comment, subscribe. I'm really serious about making weekly content. I hope that you have the loveliest Twin Peaks day. May your day be filled with lots of mundane pleasures, lots of mystery, and of course, mucho amor.